I'm Chase Score.
I'm Chris Score.
And this is the Andrews Mustang Slot Team Mafia Show, episode 12. This is brought to you by Daniel Montoya with Monument Realty. If it wasn't for him, none of this would be possible. And also our backdrop is brought to you by a local company, Nix and Nax. And real quick, in this episode, we're going to do a quick recap. We're not going to stay very long on the Estacado game. This is also a bye week for the Andrews Mustangs. We'll have our, we're going to go ahead and unveil our new 4A Region 1 Division 1 Gore Poll. We'll have our weekly Pick'em section. We do have an Andrews Mustang special guest in studio that we'll be interviewing in a little while. And then this week, since it's a bye week, we're going to go ahead and we don't have that extra game to talk about. We have a little section, little portion that's going to be kind of a little special.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about, me and Chris are going to go through, in the past 40 years here in Andrews, games that we've been a part of or that we have been in attendance to, that we have witnessed some of the most memorable Andrews Mustang games over the past 40 years. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. Chris, tell us about the Estacado game.
Well, you know, I mean, there's not a lot to say. Obviously, it was a disappointing outcome. I know the coaches and kids are disappointed as well. You know, tip your hat to Estacado. They are a stacked, loaded ball club. They were better than we thought they were. The Mustangs, you know, when they got off early, the first quarter and a half, they were able to drive a little, but like we talked about in the keys to victory, fumbles and turnovers ended up getting us on a couple of drives that might have been able to, for us to get it closer at halftime. Estacado, I think, ripped off two big runs in the last 2 minutes, kind of put the game out of reach. But, you know, the kids played hard, and that's all you can ask. But tip your hat to Estacado. They're a really good team.
And the only thing I'm going to add to that on the shout-out section is I had one shout-out, and that goes to Leroy Millan.
Yeah, he ran hard.
And 26 carries, 125 yards. And from us doing the live stream of the game, one thing that really stood out to us, Mr. Millan, he dished out some hits, and he took some hits.
He did.
But he kept getting back up.
And getting after it.
So
yeah, he did.
Great job. And we're going to go ahead and get rid of that right there.
Get rid of that game.
And we're going to go ahead and move in. We're moving quickly tonight. We're going to try to keep it short. We're going to move right into our 4A Region 1 Division 1 Gore poll. And so it's coming in at number 1. We're going to have Brownwood. At number 2 spot's going to be Decatur. Now, some of that will change this week. We'll see.
Yes, it will, yeah.
Number 3 is going to be Estacado. Coming in at the number 4 spot is going to be Springtown. Coming in at number 5 is going to be Canyon.
Yep, they won.
Coming in at number 6 is going to be Hereford.
Yep.
Coming in at number 7 is going to be Canyon Randall. Mm-hmm. Coming in at number 8 position is going to be our Andrews Mustangs. And then to round out the 9 and 10 spot, you're going to have Wichita Falls Coyotes. And then we're going to go ahead and go with the El Paso squad out there.
Riverside?
Riverside
Rangers.
Riverside 6-2. And we'll go ahead and give them a little bit of love.
There you go.
So
we might be seeing them in a couple of weeks.
Could be seeing them in a couple of weeks. So now we're going to go ahead and move into our Pick'em section. And this season, I'm sitting at 32-13. My co-host Chris is sitting at 31-14, one game behind.
Pretty good percentage.
And last week, both of us went 3-4. A lot of close games.
Worst week of the year, yeah.
And so we're going to go ahead and go. Game number 1, Chris, Brownwood at Estacado.
Man, that's a game. If you'd asked me before watching Estacado in person, I would have said Brownwood by 28. Estacado's got a lot of weapons. It's not just the advertised kids like the Ross brothers. They've got a lot of good players, well coached. That game's on Thursday night in Lubbock.
It's gonna be on
Live
YouTube
stream,
and
yeah,
TV.
YouTube.
Yes,
we're gonna watch that one. So, you know what? I would really like to see Estacado beat them. I'm gonna say Estacado by 14.
All right, and I'm gonna go Brownwood by 7. All right, now game number 2, Big Spring traveling down to Lakeview, which will also be live Thursday on the Concho Sports Network.
Yeah, so that'll be probably for that last playoff spot because I don't think either one of those teams have won in district. We haven't seen Big Spring since early in the year. A lot can change over the course of the year. We weren't real impressed with their physicality, but that was, 6 weeks ago, 5-6 weeks ago. We've seen Lakeview. I don't know what's going on down there, but I'm going to say Big Spring by 21.
All right, I got Big Spring by 14. Game number 3, huge one. Happy Bank Stadium, Canyon Randall versus Canyon Eagles.
Yeah, we've seen both of those teams. Now, Canyon Randall, we saw the first game of the year. I think they're 4-3. In Canyon, we saw a couple of weeks ago. They beat us pretty good here at home. You know what? By watching both teams, I'm gonna say Canyon high by 17.
All right, and I got Canyon by 14. All right, game number 4, we got Friendship traveling to Odessa Permian.
Yeah, Friendship lost to Midland High. Midland High took it to them last week. Permian surprised the heck out of us. Went over to Midland and beat the Lee Rebels or Legacy Rebels, whatever they're calling them now. And, Permian is kind of Jekyll and Hyde. Lost Odessa High a couple weeks ago. Looked bad against Abilene High early in the year. Friendship's got a lot of weapons. Permian struggles to score with that offense. I'm going to say Friendship by 14.
All right, and I got Permian. If they can slow Legacy way down and hold them under 30 points, I'm going to say at home, Permian gets the victory by 7.
They might at home.
All right, now the game 5, I got Odessa High Broncos going to Midland to face the undefeated Bulldogs.
Yeah, that'll be a good game. Odessa High, I think, beat Central in overtime, like 71-70. I think that quarterback threw for like 600 or 700 yards for Odessa High. They can score some points. I don't think they can stop a lot of people, but they can score a lot of points. Midland High going to Friendship and holding that offense 28 points is saying something. I'm going to say Midland High by 10.
I got Midland High by 21. All right, game number 6, I got Penn State at Ohio State Saturday.
Yeah, that game could go a long way towards the playoff.
Both top 10 teams.
Both top 10 teams. Penn State's kind of been a little bit outside that bubble the last 5-6 years. Ohio State's kind of struggling with consistency on offense. I've watched them a couple times this year. I'm going to say Penn State by 1.
All right, and I'm going to go Ohio State by 3. And the last game going to the NFL, to me, I had to look at all the games. This one's going to be the funnest. Dolphins at Eagles.
Yeah, it'll be a great game. Well, being a Cowboys fan, I can't stand the Eagles. So I'm going to say Dolphins by 20. Yeah, Dolphins by 20.
All right, and I'm going to go ahead and I like your sentiment. I agree with it. I'm going Dolphins by 3. So that's going to conclude the Pick'em section. Now, this is something new that we wanted to do this week since it's a bye week and it kind of a fill-in, but we want to do something fun. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have Chris is going to give us, and we're going to discuss each game real quick. Over the past 40 years here at Andrews, whether a game we played in, whether a game we sit in the stands and we were witness to, is 3 of the most memorable games that he has seen in Andrews.
Yeah, so for me, we talked about this earlier. Probably the number 1 game would be in 2016 when we beat Leveland 77-76 in that overtime game. Tristan Williams threw for like 600 yards. Gerber for Leveland threw for like 700 yards. I left that game with about 3 or 4 minutes left. We were down like 70-52. I get home and Chase calls me and tells me Andrews won. I didn't. I thought.
Actually, I called and I'm like, dude, we're going into overtime. Get back up here.
Yeah.
You know,
I listened to the.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I listened to the rest of it on the radio, but that was probably one of the most exciting game. A lot of points scored back with Tristan Williams, Keegan Thompson.
And if anybody ever wants to go back, it's on my YouTube page. I filmed the whole thing and the overtime to the very end.
That's back when Leveland was good. And they had Nick Gerber, they could play a little bit. But that was probably number 1. Number 2 probably would be, excuse me, in 98. This was Sean Williams' senior year. Andrews was 10-0, ranked number 3. Played Stephenville. who I think was 9-1, ranked number 8. We played him in Sweetwater in the bi-district game, and fantastic game. Andrews ended up losing 41-35. Stephenville, of course, went on to win the state championship. I've always said this. It was a shame that team had to play Stephenville right out of the box.
Well, that's one of those games where you knew whoever won that game was going to win the state championship.
Yep.
It's just the way that it fell. A funny memory about that game is who was all with us that we drove down there?
Yeah, we went down there with Robbie Browning, you and me, and Big Al Gonzalez, Al's dad. Yeah,
and we drove down there, and they back then locally in Odessa they had a radio show Saturday morning, covered local teams, high school. Guy was a big, huge Permian Panther homer, and we called into the show driving down there, and we're like, Andrews Mustangs would kill Permian this year, you know.
Now that was back when Permian had changed some coaches, and they were really struggling.
But the truth be told, we would have beat them that year.
Well, and Permian lost to Brownwood. They used to play in non-district, and Brownwood beat them like 2 years in a row.
And that guy was arguing with us, and we were laughing at him all the way down there. But another thing about that Stephenville, if you look at that game, Oklahoma offensive coordinator right now, Jeff Levy played in that game.
For the Mustangs.
Shad Williams is assistant strength and conditioning coach up in Oregon Ducks. And then also was it Kendall Browse?
Kendall Browse he was a sophomore that year, free safety for the Yellow Jackets.
He's offensive coordinator for TCU.
It was Arkansas for a couple of years. He's at TCU this year. Yep.
So all of those guys were in that game.
Art Browse was the coach.
That's
of the
another game you can go back on YouTube, and if you type that in, that whole game is live on YouTube.
That was. I think the Mustang Bowl in Sweetwater holds about 7,000 people. That particular game, they let everybody sit around the concrete on the bowl. There's probably about 10,000, 12,000 people there. That was an excellent experience.
And about that game, my offensive coordinator in high school, Willman, and Ted Willman, was at that game coaching at Brownwood at the time.
Yeah.
And we're sitting up there, and I said, they ain't never seen nobody like Shad Williams. And he said, Chase, they're going to let them score all day. He goes, you've never seen an offense like Stephenville.
Yeah.
And I mean, they spread you out 5 wide, and it was just a track meet up and down the field.
Yeah, no, they won 2 straight state championships. I think Browse won 4 there in the 90s, so they're obviously, Stephenville's iconic as far as football in West Central Texas. Had a lot of success. The third game for me would be 1991. This goes back a little bit. That game I actually played in. We hosted the Sweetwater Mustangs here. They were ranked about 7th or 8th in state. They were 5-0. I believe we were 4-1. And Eric Langhenning kicked a field goal on the last play to beat them 13-10, propelled us to a district championship. That was a homecoming game. It was
to this day, that's probably live the best game. I was a freshman in high school up in the student section with Canute Baton.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody out there remembers Canute. But that last drive, Al Gonzalez, put him on the back, carried him down the field. Eric Lang hitting about a 37-yard
field goal. And that was back in those days. Football was more physical than it is now. I mean, that 2 teams that ran the ball 99% of the time.
Moore, Hines.
Yeah, Sweetwater they were stacked. They actually won the region, and they lost to Carthage in the semifinals that year. So that was a good game. Those were my 3.
All right, so we're going to go into my 3, and one I've got to go with. It's memorable. So in 1992, we ended up going 9-0-1. We had 1 tie, no losses, and we ended up playing Plainview that year, who actually ran the wing tee similar to what we run now.
Blizzard.
And they had 2 running backs. One was like 1,700-yard rusher. The other one was 2,100 yards. Nell and Polks. And we go down there, and we played in Lowry Field in a blizzard. 60-mile-an-hour wind out of the north, rain, sleet, and snow. The grass, back then it was grass, and it was frozen. Mm-hmm. And when you kicked into the wind, you had to kick it on the ground. And if you scored going to the north, you couldn't kick an extra point. You had to go for 2. The ball would literally fly back to another direction over your head.
Yeah, I was there, but me and Chad Campbell drove my grandparents up to that game, followed my parents.
We left Andrews, 58 degrees, sunshine, and get to Brownfield. It's snowing. Our bus had a leak in it. It's leaking. And we get down there, and we were not prepared for the cold weather.
Yeah.
And that's one of the coldest. My feet were numb.
Yeah, it's
and,
cold.
we lost 13-6 in that game. Yep. And my game number 2 was in 1992. We were 9-0. Sweetwater was. We were 9-0. They were 8-1, playing for the district championship in Sweetwater Stadium, and those little horseshoe you can sit on. Mm-hmm. That sucker was packed.
Yep.
And we tied 10-10 in the game. And back then there was no overtime, so they actually got it was co-district champs.
They won on penetrations.
But they got to go as the number 1 team on penetrations.
I was at Angelo State then. We drove up from San Angelo, me and my buddies from Brownwood, to watch that game. Yeah.
So one thing I remember from that game, the guy that caught the pass that tied it on us late in the game, ended up going to UTEP.
Yep. Made him out there.
What was
David Terrell.
David Terrell was All-American.
Yep.
Ended up playing NFL for the Redskins. And what I also remember, I've never seen this in a football game. We get a penalty. They throw a flag, call a personal foul on our crowd. Someone in our crowd threw a baton out onto the field at the officials on another 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting 30 yards back on the play.
Yeah.
And it was a crazy game. That stadium was a rowdy game. The third one was 1993 playoffs. Andrews versus Brownwood. It was in the third round. It was in the regional finals, and we defeated Brownwood 24-17. It was 17-17. We were driving to win on penetrations. They actually let us score with a little over a minute left to get the ball back, but we ended up. I think Kevin Lawrence, which is it's the uncle of Jay Sean DeBose. He had about 268, 270.
Yeah, a lot of that, most of that in the first half, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And they had a big running back, Hut Allred.
Yeah.
Played at North Texas. He averaged over 200
Y'all shut him down
yards a game, and we held him to 100 yards on 30 carries. Mm-hmm. And I remember Felipe Ortiz, his son Adric played last year. He had 4 interceptions in that game. He had 4 of them. And we had 8 sophomores starting on defense that year in that big run that we had in 93.
Yep.
And so that was the following week we ended up playing
Stephenville in the regional finals.
Yep. And
they went on to win the state championship.
They beat us 17-7. They won their first one.
Brawls' first, yep.
So that's our reminiscence
trip down memory lane.
So
some people, if you've been around long enough, a lot of people here in town remember that.
Oh yeah. All right, so in this next section, we have a special guest, Andrews Mustang, in studio, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back here live interview with an Andrews Mustang, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself.
My name is Sammy Sadovar.
And position?
I play inside linebacker.
And sophomore?
Yes, sir.
Nice, very nice, very nice. Number 44.
Yes, sir.
Big shoes to fill.
Yes, sir.
I got you. All right, we're going to go ahead and start off with my favorite question. Who is your favorite football player of all time, and tell me why?
I'm going to have to go with Deion Sanders.
Deion Sanders.
Yes, sir. And I like that he's not only a good player on the field, but off the field, I like how he shares his faith in God, and he's just a really good role model.
I know you won't remember back in the day, back in the old days, you didn't have internet. So when you watched NFL on Sunday, they had NFL Sunday night, and they'd have the prime time. They'd do the little, the highlights of the game, and Chris Berman would go, prime time. Oh, yeah, and that was a long time ago. Yeah, Deion Sanders. Boy, I remember when he come out of college with all that bling, too, and he had that Jerry curl. Oh, yeah, good baseball player, too. All right, we're going to go ahead and dive into the Mustang questions. So I want you to tell me what is the biggest difference from going from freshman football, making the jump straight up to varsity?
I'm going to have to go with the speed of the game. It's a lot different.
A lot faster.
Yes, sir.
And how many games would you say did it take you to kind of like, okay?
Honestly, whenever we scrimmage West Plains over here, I was a bit nervous, but after the first drive, I was like, all right, it's time to go. And it's kind of clicked all then. Yes, sir.
I got you. Okay, so I want you to give me someone. It could be a coach, a trainer, a football player, someone on the team that's a part of the team of the program that has made a big impact on you and others?
I'm gonna go with Coach Richter's. He's just a good role model, and he's always positive, and he's willing to work with the kids. I mean, just a good person in general.
He's a good dude.
Yes, sir.
He's a good coach. All right, so this is I changed it up and got a new question. So Andrews Mustangs has had a very long tradition. For many years, goes way back, good linebackers.
Yes, sir.
And so how do you feel you're getting, not just this year, but you're getting to carry that tradition on this year and into the future?
I mean, it feels pretty good. I mean, last year we had Luis Cervantes and Jackson Loudermilk, two really good athletes overall. And, I mean, I like it. I get to fill some big shoes, and I like that I get to work for my spot, and I was getting it handed to me, and it feels pretty good. And they're pretty good role models. They looked up to them.
We love talking to linebackers. My brother Chris started 3 years on varsity at middle linebacker back when they used to run a 4-3. Right after he graduated, I come in, got to play outside linebacker. We both got to come in as a sophomore, just like you. So we like what we see, man. You're playing. I was so excited against Greenwood. He knocked that quarterback's helmet off. We're going crazy up there in the booth. And but you're having a good season. Keep putting the work in. The future's bright.
Yes, sir.
But this year's not done yet. I still got a little work to do, but we appreciate everything that you do. You get us excited. You give us stuff to get excited about whenever we're live streaming the games. We appreciate it. Keep those boys going. We got 2 district games left, and then we got playoffs.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, everybody, this is going to conclude episode 12 of the Andrews Mustang Slot Team Mafia show. I want to say special thanks to my co-host.
Yes, sir.
And very special thanks to Daniel Montoya with Monument Realty.
Great setup here.
Great setup. Wouldn't be able to do any of this without him. Our backdrop here is brought to you by local company Nix and Nax. We will also want to thank them very much for hooking us up. And we're not affiliated.
Classroom. One of these from my wife's classroom.
It's nice.
It
Very
is,
nice.
yeah.
And we're not affiliated with Andrews Independent School District or Andrews ISD. And we're hoping this is a bye week for the Andrews Mustangs to get healthy, get an extra look at Brownwood. We will be traveling down to Brownwood next week, next Friday night. And I'm not sure if my co-host will be able to attend, but I'm going to go ahead and I will be live streaming that game. If you want to,
Yeah, if I can, I will.
If you're able to, if not, it'll be me solo. But just let everybody know, and remember, everybody, it's always a great day to be a Mustang.
Yes, sir.